We have that ABC News exclusive with Ryan Ferguson. 9 years in prison for murder, even though the only two witnesses against him recanted their testimony. Our chief legal affairs anchor Dan Abrams spoke with Ryan, and Dan, he may finally be getting his freedom.
Well, we'll see. Good morning, George. 28 years old, spent almost all of his adult life in a maximum security prison for a brutal murder he and many others now insist he didn't commit.
It's hard to have much hope at this point in the justice system based on what they've done.
It all began 9 years ago when he was a college student.
I lived about a mile away from the school, and there were these guys who were tailing me.
Those guys were the police preparing to arrest Ryan for the Halloween night murder of sports journalist and father of two, Kent Heitholt. This man, Charles Erickson, told police that 2 years earlier, he and his classmate Ryan had committed the crime after a night of drinking.
Whose idea was it?
It was Ryan's idea.
Ryan's idea.
Ryan has always maintained his innocence.
We had a few drinks, hung out, and then when the bar closed, I took Erickson home, and that was pretty much the night, like any other Halloween.
But when he was first interrogated, Erickson didn't seem to know how the murder occurred or even the weapon.
I think it was a shirt or something.
Well, I know it wasn't a shirt.
It was like maybe a bungee cord or...
Well, we know for a fact that his belt was ripped off of his pants and he was strangled with his belt.
Really?
But at the 7-week trial, Erickson somehow knew all those details that had eluded him.
He was down here and he had a belt and he had his foot on his back, on the victim's back.
DNA found at the scene, the footprints and fingerprints. None of it matched Ryan Ferguson, but it was enough for a jury to convict.
We, the jury, find that defendant Ryan William Ferguson guilty of murder.
Then, 5 years into a 25-year sentence, Erickson suddenly reached out to Ryan to admit he lied.
Things happened much differently than I had previously stated. I regret now that I put an innocent man through that. He didn't deserve it.
Ryan got a new hearing in April 2012, where Erickson testified.
You'd lie to your own mother. Yeah, man, I've lied to everybody.
And then, the prosecution's second and only other eyewitness, a convicted sex offender, admitted that he too had lied at the trial.
I felt very intimidated because the only thing I wanted to do at that point was to do the right thing.
But Judge Daniel Green didn't believe Erickson's most recent account and found that there wasn't enough reliable new evidence to overturn the conviction.
It's scary knowing that they're not looking for the truth, they're looking for a conviction. So, I just maintain positivity and hope that one day I'll wake up and I'll get a good phone call.
And that call could come any day now. In an argument in front of an appeals court last month, at least one of the three judges seemed very sympathetic to Ryan's case, George.
Boy, it's hard to imagine how that previous judge didn't take another look at this
He looked
case.
at it through a very narrow legal prism, basically saying, unless I think Erickson's current version is totally credible, I can't overturn the conviction. What he didn't do is look at the totality of the evidence and say to himself, wait a second, forget about how credible I think this current account is. Is there any evidence at all that Ryan Ferguson is guilty? And the answer as of today is there is not a single piece of evidence that he is guilty.
So you look at everything and say he didn't do it.
I look at everything, I say that I think it's very unlikely he did it, but I am certain that he ought to be released. I mean, this appeals court has to look at this case and say to themselves, without a single piece of evidence standing, remember, there was physical evidence found at the scene, but none of it matched Ryan Ferguson. The key to the case was these two eyewitnesses, both of whom have now recanted their testimony, and under oath. So they're now facing the possibility of perjury because they lied at the trial. That's how committed they were to trying to right this wrong.
Boy, in the face, it's amazing that Ryan is as calm as he appears to be.
Absolutely. Look, I really hope that the appeals court does the right thing here.
Okay, and we'll see more of your interview tonight on Nightline. Thanks, Dan.